Hello, people of the internet. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I know many of you enjoyed a day off from school in remembrance of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As a result, since it is, of course, Mighty Mind Monday, we'll be going into the philosophy of Dr. King himself today as a way to honor all that he did in promotion of equality in this great nation. King had four main principles of philosophy, which I'll go through one by one. The first was the idea of the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. The triple evils are the center of the cycle of violence in today's society, and of course the society at the time of Dr. King himself. When he said poverty, he obviously meant things like hunger, homelessness, unemployment, and also poverty of knowledge, meaning like a lack of education. He called for a war on poverty in an effort to end it, as he presented when he stated that, quote, "There is nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we now have the resources to get rid of it," end quote. The second of the triple evils was militarism. By militarism, King not only meant war or imperialism or even domestic violence and abuse, he meant anything that was violent or damaged either yourself, another person, or the nation as a whole, such as even like drug abuse or rape. Finally, the final triple evil that was the most tied to Dr. King's legacy is racism, since he fought so hard for civil rights for all Americans, so that future generations could live diversely and equally. Dr. King rightly preached that, quote, "Racism is a philosophy based on contempt of life," end quote. Despite all of King's works, these three evils still plague humanity today, however, at a lower level than at his times, which we can all be thankful for. King's second main philosophical principle that he preached, as you all should know, was nonviolence. What you may not know, however, is that he had six principles within that one principle. His first principle was that nonviolence didn't make you weak or cowardly. Nonviolence is what made you strong. Nonviolence made you courageous. This type of resistance is the most aggressive type of resistance on spiritual, mental, and emotional levels. The second principle is that nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding, redemption and reconciliation, rather than vengeance for its own sake. Principle 3 was that nonviolence is meant to end injustice. Many opponents of King claimed that he was trying to bring the white man down. However, all that he was trying to do was end the injustice, not defeat a group of people. In his next principle of nonviolence, King teaches us that suffering can actually be a very educational and transformative agent of change within us, since it leads to love and forgiveness. And finally, the sixth and final principle is that nonviolence believers actually believe that God and the universe tend toward justice rather than injustice, which is an amazingly optimistic thought that could be very comforting if you actually think about it. King even made a step-by-step road to nonviolent social change, which was his third main philosophical principle, which were based on his civil rights campaigns. The first step, as it is with anything, is research, because you need to be thoroughly informed on the issue before you do anything else. Before you try to fight for your rights, you need to make sure you know what you're fighting for and how you will try to attain those rights. Great. Now you have all this information that's about, say, racism and inequality, but you're just one person. So what can you really do? The next step would have to be to educate others so that you can spread your newly found knowledge in an effort to bring others to the same conclusion that you did. After this educational step, you'd have to completely commit to the issue, doing internal checks with yourself to confirm your stance on the issue daily, because without your heart fully behind it, why would you do it? Next, you'd have to confront your quote-unquote opponent's party with grace, humor, and intelligence, so that you call forth the good in your opponent so as to bring about change. If they are unwilling to negotiate or compromise, however, then you'll have to take action so as to impose moral pressure on your opponents so that they'll have no choice but to side with you. Finally, you must try to seek friendship with your opponents so as to help bring about the beloved community. This beloved community is, coincidentally, King's fourth and final main philosophical principle. It was first coined by Josiah Royce in the early 1900s. However, King brought it into the spotlight during the Civil Rights campaign. In the end, King hoped that all people could share the wealth of the earth so as to eradicate the triple evils. In my opinion, Dr. Martin Luther King is one of the most inspirational thinkers, if not the most inspirational thinker, since he actually practiced what he preached to bring about actual change in his society. Other philosophers had amazing thoughts and ideas. However, Dr. King actually employed his thoughts in real life. He actually employed his nonviolence in an effort to eradicate racism and inequality in the United States and even globally. Thanks. I hope you all learned a thing or two about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as always, don't go changing.